Hi and welcome back. This is part 2 of the Stefan Gotteswinter indicator holder build. In part 2 we're going to have a look at making the shank, which will go up into the collet chuck on the mill, the holder itself, which will go on the other end of the arm, which will hold the indicator, and also the clamping nut, which is this one here, which will clamp up against the back of the indicator to hold it in place. So I've had a measure of the dovetails, and they're all roughly around about 5.8 in width, or just over 5.8. So we'll have to make our dovetail to suit that. I'm going to start. I've got my stock here, which has all been milled down to just over 12 mil square, and then when I come to finishing it, that will then finish down to the final size. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to machine the dovetail. And I've left my stock over length just in case I mess this up, but I'm going to grind a tool to actually cut the dovetail. I haven't ground a dovetail tool before, only just normal sort of high-speed steel tooling, so that's going to be quite interesting. So we'll start with that, and then we'll progress to do the rest of the machinings on the various parts. So anyway, let's get over to the lathe and we'll start to turn this down for this part on the end here for the dovetail. So that's the dovetail end now finished. So the next part, if we look at it up this way, so here's going to be where the threads are cut, and then we've got to cut the dovetail through the top here. So the gap is 5 mil, so I'm going to put a 4 mil in, 4 mil end mill in, and then just come up to size, and then we'll have a look at making the dovetail cutter to cut the dovetails there. So that's that part all now cut. So now we'll get on with that dovetail tool. This is a piece of high-speed steel which I'm going to be making the dovetail cutter out of. So this is really hard, so I'm going to use a carbide end, a carbide tip tool, but a hard one for using on hard materials like stainless and that sort of thing. I don't know how it's going to go, so we'll have to try it and see just to see how we get on with it. So I've now set the compound to a 30-degree cut. The included angle is 60 degrees, so we want half of that. And in the plans, to give us our 30-degree cut on each side for the dovetail. So we'll now cut those. So that's the part all now machined. So I'm going to cut 3 cutting faces in there as opposed to like 2 or 1, just so there's less strain on the tool. I was looking at putting 4 cutting faces in, but I think that would make it too weak. So we're going to go for 3 and see how that goes. So it's over to the grinder. We'll get the grinder set up and then we'll start to cut those faces. So here's the setting I've come up with. So we've got a grinder in here with a grinding disc, and then what we're going to do, we've got the tool set up halfway through, just over half, obviously the width of the disc, and then we're just going to plunge straight into the cutter. And I've got the part on the back here which is gripping in these holes here, and luckily enough that we've got 120 degrees between the, every other hole is 120 degrees. So we can plunge, come out, turn around 120 degrees, and then plunge for the next one, and then that should work well. And then we'll just have to use the winding wheels on, or the table on the X and Y, just to remove the excess material, what we don't need. And here's our tool. So like I said, we've got 3 cutting edges, and it's come out pretty well. So then the cutting edges are nice and straight. The reliefs at the back are a bit more not that good focus, but it doesn't matter about the reliefs really. And I've also ground a bit of relief on the tips of the tool there, as you can see. So anyway, we'll get that set up in the mill and we'll start and see how we get on machining those dovetails. Well, it's getting close. One more cut should do it. Yep, that's it. So yeah, so that's come out really well. I'm happy with that tool bit. That's even though, you know, it's not 100%, but it was good enough obviously to cut the dovetail and to give a good finish as well. Other than, you know, just got to finish up where just file a few of the burrs off and that, but the actual cut is really good. So yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so there's the actual dovetail. Like I say, there's a few burrs on there which just need to be cleaned up, but that I'm well happy with that. And it fits on here, a treat. So, and it fits all the dovetails as well. So, and the top one, let's try the top one. Yep, or the top one's slightly a bit tighter, but it still fits on there. So yeah, so that's good. So we'll go back and we'll set this up in the lathe again, and we'll cut the threads for the M10 by 1 fine thread. So before we can cut the threads, we've got to change the gearbox. So our item, what we need to set up to is this one here, which is 1, and that's in blue. So we need to change the gearbox to set 40 tooth on the first gear, 127, 120, and then a 40. And then we need to change these handles at the front here to match C6. So the gearbox is already set up. So we've got a 40 tooth going on to a 127, 120, and then a 40. So we'll just change these over to C, and the other one was 6. Might have to put the camera down just to get it to, oh no, that's in. Right, so that's all the gearbox set up, and now we can proceed to cut that thread. So that's the head of that part all now finished, and that's come out really well. and the thread's nice and tight on the lock nut, so no hardly any wiggle in that at all, and the dovetail fits good as well. Yep, so I'm really happy. So all three dovetails fit well. So yeah, so no wiggle, no rocking side to side, it's nice and solid. And the only one, this one was a bit tighter, this one was slightly wider than the other two, but it still fits on there okay. So yeah, so all good. So the next part now is to put the hole through, like this setting here, and then obviously round it off and countersink to fit over these parts here. So that'll be like that. So yeah, so all good. Let's carry on. Well, those parts are now finished. So this is the indicator one, and so it's all polished up and finished. And the one which goes up into the milling machine itself, same all done. The only thing I did change was the radius on here. I've matched that to the bottom one. So because it shows it in the top, but on the bottom or on the dovetail one, it doesn't show the radius on there, and that would have left quite a sort of sharp edge. So like I say, I've just matched those edges. So, but anyway, that's it for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.